guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome to the channel if it is your first time here around here. As you can see, the boys are all right there behind me.
It's Marti Blagborough, who has a YouTube channel that I link to in the description. He says he is auditing, and here he is with several other so-called auditors, and we're about to see them all visit an industrial site and film themselves in the process. The site is the Lindsey Oil Refinery in North Killingholme, Lincolnshire, not far from Immingham Docks.
We've seen a hell of a lot of tankers coming in and out of this one. So these might be like finished end products. These are security 4x4, which we have seen about 10-15 times already today. And it's just ahead of us, waiting on the corner. We're waiting for his arrival. So we'll see what they say to us the second that we arrive there. Let's do this. So here we are, guys. This is Killingholme Terminal on the Prax estate, whatever you want to call it.
So they're expected. I think that's what he was trying to explain. They've already been spotted at another site nearby, the Humber refinery, known as the Phillips 66 site, another oil refinery. Just to briefly explain, I'm not familiar with the site in any detail, but my understanding is that this industrial complex is about 4 or 5 miles from Immingham Docks, and the complex is owned by the Prax Group, which is a British multinational oil conglomerate and the public limited company registered in the UK. What you see there is the entrance to the Killingholme Terminal, which is part of the site. I may be mistaken, but I think that will be the distribution terminal from where the tankers emerge to distribute the refined petroleum. Now, an important point is that the road he's on is called Eastfield Road, and that is a public highway. So right at this point, Marti Blagborough is perfectly entitled to be where he is, at least right up to this point. He's not trespassing at this point, as he is still on the public highway, and nobody can dispute that. However, if you look carefully, what you can see there at the entrance is a sign that says private property, no trespassing. Note that such a sign is not usually necessary in law anyway, but even so a sign is there. It appears Marti Blagborough and his friends are ignoring that sign, or they just haven't seen it.
So this is where they're loading all the tankers, this is where they're all getting filled up. So you've got some Asda. So for everyone here, right? Let me just make a point here, everyone, right? So, you know when people say, oh, well, I don't like Asda Fuel Me, but I don't mind Tesco. Well, right here, you're going to see every different kind of truck coming out of the same place. All your fuel is the same stuff that comes from the same place. You'll see everything coming out of here: Morrison's, Asda, Tesco, Shell, Tesso, you name it. The lot of them all come out of this very same establishment. For whatever reason, people choose to believe that their fuels are different because they've got a different sign above the fuel pump. Unfortunately, you're a little bit mistaken. But these boys know the score.
So here we see them having passed the private property, no trespassing sign. And a further point to note is that they are now on a private road. This is not a publicly adopted highway. That road they are now walking on is owned by the Prax Group, or some other private owner. There are signs and markings there that are similar to a public highway, but it is still a private road. I'm not going to say at this point that these people are trespassing, because it's early in the footage and we shouldn't prejudge their intentions. It could be that Marti is looking for a job, or they're just academically curious about oil refining, storage and distribution, and are seeking more information. But you can perhaps guess at their attitude when you see them walking right into the road near the tanker. They don't seem to care about safety, and they don't come across as very respectful in general. If somebody is genuinely curious about such a site, there are avenues they can go down. They could ring up beforehand and ask for a site tour, or there will be a site office they can inquire at, or they can inquire at one of the buildings or ask one of the workers to direct them to the correct person. Let's see if they do one of those things.
Yep.
As the DJ would say.
So this is obviously the gatehouse. I need to find that other part of reception. I mean, do we get down to this? It must be in a different area. I'm clearly not at the right place.
There's a whole different other side.
Yeah, it might be around that side, who knows. But yeah, so we're here, we've got a little car park here.
What he's just been referring to is probably the other entrance to the site further up Eastfield Road. Obviously they're looking for reception, but as you'll see, they don't ask anybody on site to direct them there or to a responsible person who can help them. They shortly come to a secure entrance, and I'm now going to skip forward again.
What's going on round here then, soldiers?
Caution, moving traffic.
Got all the plant running around this side. We've got more fire equipment over there, guys. Look, we've got all the things that go back, you know, like an incident response unit that we can put onto the back of trucks, and then they'll run round with all them. Now, so we've got a big main gate to this site here. Prax Lindsey Oil Refinery.
They've been walking around the site and looking at a fire station. You'll notice workers walking around and heavy plant, but these auditors are not wearing any personal protective equipment, PPE, safety clothing. Nobody on the site seems to challenge them, which makes most of the video fairly uneventful. I assume it's because they've been forewarned and know it's better to ignore them. They're wise to them.
What's that? Retinal scanner?
Rectal scanner.
Rectal.
It's a rectal scanner.
So here we've got an office guy.
Here they're messing around at one of the secure entrances. I think at this point it's safe to say they're trespassing. Insofar as they have any purpose for being there, it's not a purpose that would be within the reasonable expectation of the site owners. I don't necessarily have a great issue with simple trespass by explorers who want to film sites of interest. The issue here is the way they are going about it. This is a working site and they have no respect and just don't care.
You need to get your bum out.
An empty office, I must say. There's just loads of like car keys and stuff on the wall. Well, I can't tell you if they're car keys, but I was just assuming that they were car keys.
He's basically just looked in one of the security huts and deliberately filmed some keys, which clearly shows a disregard for security on the part of both the auditor and, it has to be said, the site operators.
There you go. Pause and read it through unless you guys.
Of course it's.
What you see there is a safety sign. I don't know the geography of the site, but it appears that they are stood at one of the access points to the actual refinery itself, so the instructions and prohibitions on that sign would strictly only apply if they enter, but clearly they are not clothed or equipped in a way that would prepare them to comply with those restrictions. They have camera equipment, for instance, and the sign specifies no cameras. They have no PPE, personal protective equipment. And what if they had tried to gain access and even walked into the refinery itself? I suspect that they are also carrying mobile phones, which in theory could be dangerous if they entered the refinery. In fact, let's go back a bit to something I noticed and forgot to mention from earlier in the footage.
Loads of like car keys and stuff on the wall. Well, I can't tell you if they're car keys, but I was just assuming that they were car keys.
There you go. Pause and read it through unless you guys.
Of course it's locked, you nutter. The scene is coming a mile away. What do you think this is? So this is like a car park. Yeah, it's just a car park, is this. Funny, there's no site saying no entrance and that though, is it? Which is really weird. There's no signs. It's only a...
Marty, there was a sign saying private property, no trespassing, right at the entrance off Eastfield Road. You ignored that sign or didn't see it. But even if there wasn't such a sign, it should be obvious that you are not in an area where the public are expected to be. It is private property. You are filming in windows. It's ridiculous. Let's jump ahead. Let's skip forward.
Good. But it looks like this site is leaving us alone, guys. It looks like this might be a pass.
A pass in what sense? There was no challenge from security, even though you were trespassing and a hazard to yourselves and others. He thinks that's good. I think that's bad. In the next clip, they see staff through the office windows just going about their work and start bothering them. This is a bit where they start looking in the windows and pointing their cameras inside the building. In fact, one of them was filming inside through the windows earlier in the footage. I'll just show that now before we go on to the filming staff.
And a building of some kind. There's a gap in the middle of the buildings. I think we'll go check that out in a moment. We've got some open windows. Go on, lad. Just a changing room. Just changing rooms. Yeah, more just changing rooms. Yeah, this is nothing but changing rooms. Well, be careful poking your cameras in there for some fella getting his knackers out. It is bonkers. But it looks like this site is leaving us alone, guys. It looks like this might be a pass. We've got someone here. Give the thumbs up. Give one of them. Give the thumbs up. No thumbs up. Give the thumbs up, man. Come on, thumbs up. Give the thumbs up. Oh, don't close the blinds, Steve. Oh, Steve. Steve, you aren't shutting properly yet, mate. Steve. Hello. Steve.
Oh, shut your blinds on us.
You can still see through though. You aren't shutting properly. Steve. Peekaboo! Oh! Any confidential information on that screen? Oh! What about the paperwork on the desk? Is it what I can zoom in onto that with? What about this stuff that's on the windowsill? Is it important here that I shouldn't be reading, mate? No, alright, we're allowed to read this, guys. We've got permission so we can publish this online as well. Get some images of that there. Steve! Give us a smile. Yes, Steve.
We've already got a picture of it.
You're a good looking chap, Steve. Don't be shy, mate. It's alright. Good lad, good lad. We like people who stick to GDPR. It makes us feel happy. I sleep better tonight knowing you're looking after that stuff, Steve. I really will do. Have a good day, Steve. It's your room. Yeah. Hey, I'll audit you. Bang up window. Oh, too late. Hello. How you doing, Fred? You alright, bruv? Are you watching porn on Google at this time of day?
He was.
Are you watching porn?
Oh, don't tell me you've got somebody watching. He was,
Let's see what his top search result is. Hang on, quick. I'm trying to zoom in on his search result. Oh no, I've zoomed back out by accident. Come on, focus.
What was it? Pornhub?
In-depth something. Legend Street. No, Legend Sheet. Yeah? Legend Sheet is looking at. Legend Sheet. Let's have a look on this paperwork on desk.
This is too much information. We should not be seeing this, but we are. Well, it's on his orders to fucking shut the blinds.
Operation procedure. Propane. Propylene.
Well, if I just show them.
Splitter operation conditions. And then we've got a layout of some kind of big map on the computer there. You don't need to phone them, mate. They already know we're here, I promise you.
They are recording these people in their place of work, and they are trespassers on private premises, where there is no reasonable expectation that these people should be recorded. And they are also recording documents belonging to that company without that company's consent. I would say that what we have here is an aggravated trespass. Let's take a look at section 68(1) of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994. What section 68(1) says is that a person commits the offence of aggravated trespass if he trespasses on land, in the open air, and in relation to any lawful activity which persons are engaging in or are about to engage in on that or adjoining land in the open air, does there anything which is intended by him to have the effect of intimidating those persons or any of them so as to deter them or any of them from engaging in that activity, of obstructing that activity, or of disrupting that activity. So section 68(1) describes the offence of aggravated trespass. Let's now look at the Data Protection Act 2018. These auditors are engaged in publishing YouTube videos for income. Therefore, they are handling data for business purposes. The handling of data related to a company that they film is not classed as personal data because this is a large company, so that part of what they did does not fall under the Data Protection Act. However, they did also film individuals, and a video recording of a person's face is classed as personal data that is protected under the Data Protection Act 2018. Now, this personal data is a core part of their YouTube business, yet they are broadcasting that data for all to see without the consent of the people being filmed. And in this case, the filming was being done while they were trespassing. So there is a data protection offence being committed and also a breach of the data protection regulations for which these auditors could be fined. First, they have unlawfully obtained the personal data, which is contrary to section 170 of the Data Protection Act. What section 170 says is this: it is an offence for a person knowingly or recklessly to obtain or disclose personal data without the consent of a controller, to procure the disclosure of personal data to another person without the consent of the controller, or, after obtaining personal data, to retain it without the consent of a person who was a controller in relation to the personal data when it was obtained. That's section 170 subsection 1. That describes the offence. The data controller in this case would be the employer of the individual filmed, from whom consent should have been obtained by the auditor. Morally, and probably in law, they should also have the consent of the individual being filmed, but here I am referring to criminal law. These individuals could have the video removed from public platforms, if they wish anyway, as there is a reasonable expectation of privacy in their workplace. Second, there is a requirement to register as a data controller and pay an annual fee to the Information Commissioner's Office under Regulation 2 of the Data Protection Charges and Information Regulations 2018, which you can see here. These auditors are processing personal data electronically as part of a business activity. Now, I have checked on the website of the Information Commissioner's Office, and there is only one registration by the name of Blagborough on the Register of Data Controllers, and it is not him or anyone connected to him. This means that both he and the other auditors could be issued with fines by the Information Commissioner's Office under powers in Part 6 of the Data Protection Act. So, to sum up the trip to Immingham: aggravated trespass contrary to section 68(1) of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994. A data protection offence contrary to section 170 of the Data Protection Act 2018. A regulatory breach contrary to Regulation 2 of the Data Protection Charges and Information Regulations 2018. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that realistically either the Crown Prosecution Service or the Information Commissioner's Office would seek to pursue these matters in any formal sense. But these people call themselves auditors, yet appear not to understand simple trespass or aggravated trespass or data protection. Or they do understand these things and don't care. They call themselves auditors, but they are not familiar with even the most basic principles of visitor safety on an industrial site, yet they have the nerve to lecture about health and safety. But let's take them at their word and assume that what we have just watched is an audit and not just a bit of cheap entertainment. I would say this is a failed audit for the site operators and security, regrettably, because the auditors were trespassing in a hazardous industrial area and should have either been challenged and removed or supervised for the duration of their tour of the site. There is a legal duty to see to the safety of visitors, whether invited or not. The Occupiers Liability Act 1957 requires that visitors will be reasonably safe in using the premises for the purposes for which they were invited or permitted by the occupier to be there. And the Occupiers Liability Act 1984 introduced a similar duty of care for trespassers. Under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, the person who is in occupation or has control of a premises owes a duty of care to all their visitors. Employers must ensure, as far as is reasonably practicable, that in the course of their activities, persons who are not their employees are not put at risk. Furthermore, the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations 1999 require an employer to make a suitable and sufficient assessment of the risks to the health and safety of persons not in his employment arising out of their undertaking. So the duty to carry out risk assessments extends to visitors as well as employees. A risk assessment should look at the potential risks for a visitor entering your premises and decide what precautions should be put in place, such as communicating on site safety information. In short, the site operator should not have hidden away during filming by these auditors, but should have confronted the auditors and, as a minimum, required that they sign in or that they were monitored and escorted around the site. I would also say that this is a definite fail for the auditors for the reasons already explained. I appreciate that in reality there was probably little or no risk to them. It's unlikely that a mobile phone is actually a risk in such areas. The risk is probably only theoretical and anyway only applies to the core areas of a site, and wearing PPE probably would make little difference. But the point is that they were there as visitors, in this case unauthorised, and showed little concern for or awareness of these points. These people are not auditors. They are not carrying out any kind of auditing exercise. What they are doing is, at best, antisocial and, in my opinion, criminal.